Does the flap of a butterfly's wings in China set off a tornado in Texas? In chaos theory, the butterfly effect is described as a sensitive dependence in which a small change can affect large differences. So, the idea is that a butterfly's wings might create tiny changes in the atmosphere that may ultimately alter the path of a tornado. The butterfly does not directly create the tornado. Instead, the butterfly's wings can cause the tornado. The flapping wing is a small change in the initial condition, which cascades to large-scale alterations of events. And that's what we are seeing in China and the US now. So, let's take a look. The COVID-19 outbreak is hammering China's economy. Small and medium-sized companies in China with razor-thin margins are taking the initial hit. However, the impact is more widespread. Despite all the optimistic news reports that China is returning to work, the Chinese economy apparently is actually stalling. As this chart shows, China's daily coal consumption is barely lifted off the lows typically experienced during the Chinese New Year. The current coal consumption, shown by the red line at the bottom, is roughly 50% of where it was a year ago this time. With coal demand scraping the bottom, it would also be expected that coal supply is depressed as well, as shown by this chart and again by the red line. Coal volumes over the past week remain 25% lower than the average of the past 3 years and about 30% below the level in 2019. Since coal is a major piece of China's economy, these charts clearly indicate that China is not back to work and everything is not getting back to normal. Like any business metropolis and any major city in the world, one of the best indicators of real-time commerce is traffic congestion. As this chart shows, traffic in China has remained at the low levels extending from the Chinese New Year. There doesn't appear to be any meaningful change and is substantially below where it was in previous years. If this was Los Angeles, I could make it from Orange County to Ventura in about 20 minutes. And speaking of transportation, or maybe not transportation, the number of passengers carried after the Chinese New Year is barely above 10 million. This level is about 50 million below the level of last year. Somehow, I don't subscribe to the Chinese news reports that the country is getting back to normal. Maybe this is the new normal. And this chart here is somewhat unfortunate. What it shows is that even with no transport, minimal commerce, and limited power plant use, pollution is finally starting to ramp up. But if there is no coal demand and no transportation, there is only one answer. To me, the most likely answer is that the crematoriums are working overtime. So, let that sink in a little. With the flap of butterflies' wings in China, the effect is being felt in other locations. As examples, in the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, two of the busiest ports in the United States, last year during the same time frame there were a total of 17 cancellations of ship arrivals. So far this year, there have been 37 cancellations. A ship docked at Long Beach on Friday of last week was the last one expected to come in from China for 9 days. The number of cargo containers coming out of China each week has fallen by 300,000 since the virus hit. Worldwide, the cost of shipping cargo is plummeting as ship owners compete for the diminishing amounts of trade remaining. American companies have not experienced the full effects of the shutdowns because products were already in transit. But let's look at South Korea. The Hyundai complex at Ulsan is the world's biggest auto assembly facility. The complex makes 1.4 million vehicles a year and is now closed because it can't get the critical parts it needs from China. Back here in the US, Apple has warned on revenue guidance. Microsoft just gave a warning for its third quarter personal computing segment revenue. Procter & Gamble has stated that 17,600 finished products could be impacted. And during earnings calls recently, 27 different companies from the S&P Composite 1500 mentioned the word virus or coronavirus. So, my friends, that doesn't mean things are going to crash, but it does mean stay patient, prudent, and be prepared. For today, that's ChewDog Charts. Thank you.